Ever since the first Valorant Champions was announced over a year ago, we've known a couple of things for certain. We knew we were going to get some amazing Valorant gameplay, and we knew that our first champion would be crowned. What we did not know, however, was all the drama the tournament would bring, and we're barely out of the group stage. So if you don't know what's happening or you're just confused, don't worry. I'll explain everything. All right, y'all, before we get into the video, I always gotta remind you, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and to ring that notification bell. We're just over a week in, and Valorant Champions is getting dramatic. False positive COVID cases, Cypher cam exploits, an entire region being upset at one team/player. It's been a heck of a few days. Unless you're like my fellow host Keith, who deleted his Twitter, I am pretty sure you saw what went down between Shazam, Zoms, and what feels like the entire fan base of Brazilian Valorant. If you're not completely up to date with what's happened, don't worry, I have this timeline for you, but before we get into it, let me just say we are all going to be completely respectful and understanding. More importantly, if you're going to be xenophobic, hateful, problematic, you don't belong here. You're part of a community of literally millions. Act like it. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, what has happened the past week? In order to understand the complete context of this, we gotta back it up to December 2nd when Sentinels faced Furia. It was close, it was 1-1, and Sentinels just needed one more round to close out the series. However, Furia was being Furia, aka bosses, and they were making an insane comeback.
There's a slither. There is a slither right at the back, just as you say. Can they find a way to manage this though? Tens lining up at the back wall. All the Sentinels players firing off together. In comes Mazin. Very important flank through. There's the hold. There's the stick. Can he find it? Can he find it? Yes, he can! Still Fury are alive. The Red Bull clutch there. Parenti are still alive. Are you a believer, Sean?
I am a believer, Dan. That is insane.
Momentum was on their side. The rounds were exciting and nail-biting, and then a tech pause. A pause of any kind is frustrating, but the map's gonna pick up soon, right? No, not at all. It wasn't a minute or two long tech pause, it was a really long time. Like I almost fell asleep watching the broadcast long. It was like 20 minutes. After we returned from the pause, Sentinels won that last round and closed out the series. Listen, tech pauses happen all of the time. They're necessary. It seems like this tournament specifically can't escape them. It leaves lots of time for both to do like literal dances. But this tech pause was particularly annoying and honestly upsetting. The pause happened because of a specific jump that he made onto a box on top of C. What he did was not an exploit, but rather a skill jump, but time was taken to make sure that it was legal. But we, the audience, aka the viewers, didn't know that. What we saw on our screens at the end were the Sentinels returning to the desk. So some people like myself saw Tens and Shazam coming back and thought maybe Sentinels had initiated it. Personally, I saw Tens holding his neck coming back, so I thought it was like an injury or something. I talked to Dapper after that match about what happened, to which he simply replied,
"Yeah, that was theirs." Yeah.
So an unfortunate tech pause that arguably should not have happened nor taken that long for a simple skill jump. But this is where our story really begins. People were livid at Sentinels, thinking they initiated the tech pause to stall Furia's momentum and win the series. There's lots of hate being sent their way, including allegedly death threats. People were photoshopping Shazam's head onto a stock body photo because Shazam explained that he just asked to go to the bathroom since the tech pause was so long. Shazam admitted this was weird because in the past, this wasn't allowed. Shazam later explained his thoughts on stream about everything that was happening on Twitter.
All these like really large Brazilian influencers are like memeing and clowning me on Twitter, like talking shit, like shamelessly, without even knowing what happened. I literally just went to take a piss. It's actually really f***ed up. It really disappoints me.
So that happened, but we're not nearly done. On December 3rd, Vivo Key defeated Ascend 2-1. One of those maps was Breeze. However, people began to notice that there may have been an actual exploit used by Vivo Keyed. You see, there's a place on Breeze, specifically A site, where if you're defending and you're Cypher, you can place his camera where it glitches through the texture and is an unfair advantage. And if this sounds familiar, we've done a video on this before.
The bug in question revolves around Cypher's spy cam. It allows Cypher to see a site on Breeze without the attackers being able to see the cam unless they push further into the site.
The TLDR of this is that that camera is an exploit, which teams knew they were not allowed to use before the event. And teams have been punished before for using it, specifically X10 and Vodafone Giants. So there is precedent, and Riot, after an arguably long time, made the decision that this camera was indeed an illegal exploit and that VK would be penalized 6 rounds for it. Those 6 rounds would make Ascend win Breeze and then technically the series. And then all hell breaks loose. Hashtag Justice for Keed begins to trend on Twitter. People are upset, and people pointed fingers at other people like Dapper from Sentinel, saying they used the same camera but did not receive any punishment. I can say that a colleague of mine and myself checked out the VOD where people were throwing accusations at Dapper of using that camera, and the positioning looks a little bit different. Also, from not part of this tournament, we have clips of Dapper using a different camera spot. Dapper himself denies using the camera exploit. Now, after the initial ruling, Riot said, hey, we're actually going to review this one more time, and they eventually decided that they're going to replay the map with Ascend up 7 after discussing the situation with the EMEA team. Ascend eventually won. Huge props to Vivo Keed for tying up that match as well. I talked to the coach of Vivo Keed, and this is what he had to say regarding the exploit.
Yes, they did receive a list. The list has a few pictures, but that one part is in a slot that has no pictures, so they should have paid more attention. And they have been practicing using that camera for a while. It's not something that they were like surprised and decided to do then, even because like it was not their intention, like, oh hey, let's abuse a bug. Since like Cypher didn't go to the same bomb all the time, and if they won like one round because of that, it was too much. But that it wasn't their intention to be like, I'm gonna exploit something.
On December 4th, we all wake up to a bunch of tweets from players in Berlin saying that like something really upsetting and sad has happened, but we have no clue what. Eventually, we find out that there were a bunch of false positive COVID tests and everything, and everyone is okay. But that is not the biggest piece of drama that would happen that day. On December 4th at 1:12 p.m. Eastern Time, Shazam sends out a tweet. Should have called a tech pause. He tweeted this during Team Vikings versus Gambit, and honestly, what happened was a choke. Vikings should have had it in the bag. So Shazam makes a joke in light to the Sentinels v Furia situation, but people didn't take it as a joke. Shazam then went back and forth in a serious conversation with Gustavo Millau, who is a Brazilian commentator and presenter for Valorant. And then Zoms enters the thread. Can't wait to beat your shit region again. And this is when all hell breaks loose. Gustavo tries to reply to this, to which Zoms replied, oh no. If you're seeing a pattern, Zoms then doubles down on his rhetoric on his Twitter almost an hour later. He then posted another tweet about Brazil and a screenshot of the highest earners in Valorant, which is him and the rest of the Sentinels. And Zoms is not wrong or even exaggerating about the punishment part of his tweets. After the shit region comment, people were calling for Zoms to be punished under VCT competitive rules. Specifically, there are some parts of Section 7 where people saw the rules being most applicable to what Zoms said. It should also be said that there is a precedent of players being punished under this section, one being version 1 Zelsis for a remark he made. We don't know what he said, but he was suspended from the VCT. Some people thought it was funny and on the essence of esports, but others, like the co-CEO of Furia, said that, quote, as the co-CEO of Furia Esports and Brazilian, I truly would like to see this kind of behavior be punished accordingly. It cannot happen. Esports is about respect, passion, love. Disrespect 220 million people, a lot of them living in poverty, is unacceptable. Zoms began trending on Twitter with tens of thousands of tweets, and the next day, he triples down. Not trying to be that person, but I should probably say the next day, Zoms and the rest of the Sentinels were eliminated from the tournament. Now, I've been able to speak to a number of coaches and players in the VCT, and I wanted to get their thoughts on this because this is a pretty big deal. I know it may seem like petty drama and banter, but remember, Sentinels were allegedly sent death threats, and Brazilian fans and players' feelings were seriously hurt. It turned out to be more than just tweets. I know it's corny or whatever, but words can seriously hurt people. I asked Furia's Zand after their elimination if he had been looking forward to facing Sentinels again, and this is what he said.
Well, one step at a time first. I do believe that Sentinels are a great team and it would be really good to face them. Not just for me, but because there are some people there who are being shit-talking our region and our nation and saying things, bad things about our day-to-day life and our daily difficulties. So more than just for the match, it would be great to be able to face them for myself or personal reasons and to shut them up a little.
It should be noted that if Furia had won that set, they would have faced Sentinels once again. I asked the head coach of Crew and my new Twitter mutual friend about this tweet he had made regarding region rivalries, and he explained that he doesn't really like that whole head-to-head idea, and he would like to see a different environment.
I would like to see, an environment with more freedom. I don't like to win a game, and heard that people from our region, Latam, are making jokes about Brazil being bad, because we are very close. We have a lot of friends. For example, Noswer, a player from Furia, was my teammate in another game a few years ago. We are very close together, so I don't like that kind of rivalry between regions. Maybe between teams, I think a banter it's okay to have banter between both teams or two teams. But when we talk about regions, we wake up, feelings about nationalism, politics, and other things that I think they don't have a place here, because it's an sport and should be a healthy one.
Fun fact, I asked his player Klaus about what he thought about all of this, and he said,
I don't care, to be honest.
I also asked Heat and Koi from Vivo Keyed about the situation, and this was their response.
Well, I believe that people and regions should be united, and we should support each other. Even if something grotesque happens, we should always get together and support each other instead of going against each other. Basically, that's what I think.
It's kind of a pity. He doesn't really enjoy the kind of public attitude and the being offensive in social media, since they play with so much feeling. Sometimes even they can pass the limit, like the game yesterday where they were fighting with so much force of will, since it was a really hard game and then started behind. And sometimes you can get in the mood and actually extrapolate what you're trying to say, maybe even get a little bit offensive. But he thinks that the community should be more united and actually cheer for a team and to protect the team the way it's meant to be, and not with hard offenses and stuff happened.
And that's pretty much it. Since then, Sentinels has been eliminated from Champions and people have memed on them and still are, but that does not take away from the seriousness of the situation. And Vivo Keyed and Furia are also eliminated from the tournament, which I know really stings for Brazilian fans, especially after everything that has happened. Being sent death threats and hate is not okay in any way, shape, or form. And also, everyone's feelings about what was said about the region is valid. A blanket statement like that, like Ornor said, can bring up a lot of feelings that are not related to esports. All in all, Champions is not over. So let's just hope that the event can just be the event and we can all just enjoy Valorant at its pinnacle like it's supposed to be. Which, not to be that person, is pretty dang awesome. And we're barely even out of the group stages. So let's just enjoy it.